Hi, everyone. So here we are again. The penultimate pod now as the season reaches its frantic climax. Who will win in the title race? Who will win out in the race for Europe? Who will win the battle to avoid the drop? Hang on, wait. I'm hearing all of these things have pretty much been decided already. Wow, okay. The final day drama is going to be stretched thinner than average household's budget in the Cosy lives. Unbelievable. Anyway, let's soldier on. I'm back this week with Lucy ahead of her final game week as an FPL manager, at least until 2024, if not ever. You're all right.
I'm all right, thank you. I don't want to sound painfully British, but I'm very much enjoying the sunshine of recent days, which just means I'm bracing myself for the inevitable wet bank holiday that follows and a disappointing game week 38. But anyway, we are Who Got the Assist. You can find Tom on the main account at WGTA_FPL, and you can find me at Lucy Hynett. On the pod today, we'll be focusing on the final day of the season. With the help of some data, we'll be taking a trip down memory lane to final days of yesteryear. What can we expect from game week 38? And then we'll open up to some wider chat around the final week, including options for each position and what we think we're likely to do. We're recording on the evening of Monday the 22nd of May, hiding from Newcastle versus Leicester and Wilson's inevitable rank destroyer.
Yes, yes, indeed. Can't wait to see how bad that goes. Anyway, no mini league update this week and no market forces this week because we are so early on in the game week, really. But we will give a final update on the mini league and market forces. A big goodbye to for another year. Right, game week reviews. We both took the plunge on an extra move on top of the one we were discussing to get Bruno back in. Both went off for Alvarez. How are you getting on this week?
Well, as I said, it's going all right until Wilson turns up. I'm on 39 -4 at the moment, which puts me on a tiny green arrow, following last week's quite large red arrow. I did 3 moves, as you've just kind of mentioned. So I did have 2 free transfers, but I've done 3. So I've gone from Watkins, Grealish, and Trippier, who was a player that I thought might miss out. But again, because it's me, they have a yellow flag but never miss the game. And they went out for Alvarez, Bruno, and Lindelof for -4. 2 of those 3 have obviously returned in the first half of the double game week, so looks all right, but it will all look pretty stupid when Newcastle inevitably come good tonight. As you can tell, I'm feeling chipper. How about you, Tom?
I'm just waiting for the punishment really of 38 -4 here to well, I think you got one more point than me, but hey, that's by the by. Isaac and KDB to Alvarez and Bruno. So yeah, thinking about how I was gonna get Bruno in last week, and I was thinking about Salah, etc., etc. And this just came to realization really that selling KDB, selling Bruno, selling Salah instead of selling KDB and having KDB for one game just didn't. I don't know. It just felt a bit circuitous and strange rather than just selling KDB, who's a single game weeker anyway, and so it's proved to Bruno keeping Salah. But I kind of thought after doing that, I just want another ticket in the Pep Roulette City Lottery, I suppose. And seeing Isaac play so far on the left, and obviously there's an element of a hissy fit about it, but selling him kind of felt good. And I felt like, well, okay, well, we'll go for that and get another City attacker in. It sort of made sense as it was starting. And obviously, since we lost against the Forest on Saturday, the whole team seems to have changed overnight. So yeah, I mean it's okay. See how it goes, but Trippier tonight, I'm an 8 to play on top of that 34 net. It's all right. It's bang on the safety score, but I think I'm into a red arrow tonight after Wilson sets foot on the pitch and on top of a load of other people who've got Isaac as well. But yeah, everything's really changed, Lucy, since it just in the space of 2 weeks. It was kind of, oh yeah, let's hope to get back in the top 10K. I hope to comfortably win my mini leagues. And now, thanks to Wilson, it's try to hang on to top spot, but I don't think I will be able to because so many people have Wilson, so many people had and captain Wilson that my leads have been wiped out, and it's down to just luck now. And then top 30K would be good. I mean, it's quite a depressing turn of events. So same for you.
Yeah, so last week's red arrow, which was a green arrow until Wilson popped up in the closing stages, that's taken me just outside the top 50K. So really my best possible outcome is that I get back inside, but I'm not very optimistic on that. I think Wilson's stinging a little bit because it feels like we just got on the wrong side of that 50-50. and we only did so because I think most people thought he wouldn't play as many minutes as he has, and that's caused just a lot of pain, really. So it's just one of those things where if you misread the minutes on a very good player, that very good player can punish you quite badly.
I don't know if it was I don't know if it was misreading. It was just kind of, if I think you said that offline earlier, that if someone had said, "Well, Wilson's going to start each of these three games," then the consideration for him over Isaac would have just been like, innumerably different, really, and we'd all have got him. And it just felt such a savage 50-50, especially at this stage of the season, because those are points that are just impossible to make back now. Let's be honest, especially over
He
captains from
was
last week.
the big game to be made. Like we spoke last week, didn't we, about ways people could make up, or the previous week, well, ways people could make up ground, and it felt like Wilson captain was probably the last one that was left, just because it felt so obvious that people would captain Haaland this week, and then, well, I mean, I guess we'll be in the lap of the league gods next week, but it felt like that was the obvious time to make ground. So if you lost ground at that point, I think it's now looking pretty set in stone, roughly where you'll be, unless something freaky was to happen with a few differentials.
Yeah, it's just such a. I just every year I just feel like I'm at the wrong end of a savage 50-50. Like perhaps this is season it's kind of happened, thinking, Saka versus Salah, or selling Mr. Martinelli for Odegaard. But I mean, really kind of big captaincy ones tend to happen to me sort of midway through the season, or just getting towards the end, when there's still sort of an element of hope that I've got a bit of time to make it all up. But nah, it just feels so brutal that it's happened now, and there's just no way of making that up. And all you're reduced to is just hoping that, as you say, a differential comes through. And with our team so similar, your differentials are down to either who you pick up for this week, or someone like Dunk for me versus Estepinian, or De Gea saving a penalty versus Short. It's terrible. It really is. Anyway, on that happy note, let's move forward to looking at game week 38 historically. Now, I guess most people do think that there are more goals scored in game week 38. And it's one of these sort of crazy random days. And I did this last year as well, but I had to look through the past sort of 8 seasons and picked up the averages as well in terms of goals and clean sheets, just to get an idea whether there are in fact more goals and more action on the final day than other normal weeks during the season. So over the last 8 seasons, on average on the final day you see 34.1 goals. There are 20.2 home goals on average, 13.9 away goals on average, and about 4.2 clean sheets. So how does this measure up to just a normal week? I spoke to FPL Review about this last year, and we came up with an average of 15.5 home goals and 12.5 away goals per week, an average of 28 goals per week, plus about sort of 5 clean sheets. So that means, all in all, that there are about 21.8% more goals on the final day on average. So there's 28 on a normal week, 34 on an average game week 38 across the board. And there are more home goals too. There's a 31% rise roughly. So 20-ish on the game week 38 should be the expected amount, versus kind of 16 on a regular week. And clean sheets fall too. So the 16% fall from average expectation of about 5 to about 4. I think last year there was 2, which I'll come on to in a minute. In the past as well, there's a bit of a funk to the data, because during the COVID times, the home advantage was obviously completely wiped out. But fans, I think, were allowed back in the stadium a couple of years ago on game week 38. I'm right in saying, yeah, I think so. So that kind of still means that there is a bit of funk to the data, but it still shows that home is where the heart of the points is, really, when it comes to game week 38. And yeah, there are loads of goals, Lucy. Surely not surprising.
No, I'm not surprised. It is quite nice though, isn't it? Where you have these, I think football regularly gets itself into these kind of little narratives where you just assume things after a while. So it's quite nice to have the data that backs up the theory that there are more goals. And maybe that can kind of guide us with our transfer thoughts as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just kind of opened itself up to max variance or max luck on the final day, and just hoping to get in the right place, I guess, isn't it? Or getting that right person. But it's never really that person that you expect, is it?
No,
Who comes through? It's always kind of someone you
no.
never look
Someone
at.
completely mad. That will be sense this year, and we'll all go, "Oh, why didn't we look at that guy? Now he's got his brace and 3 bonus points. It's just one
Yeah.
of those things. You just got to give yourself a good chance of being on them, I suppose, and having a bit of fun. I think because you spend the whole of the rest of the season thinking about whether you'll want them the following week. Well, now you don't have to worry about it. So
Yeah, one and done. Cool. Let's have a look at memory lane then. It's just last year. It's one of those things where I sort of remember it and sort of don't, just because FPL is so sort of cyclical that new memories replace the old ones and they
I
get
don't remember
erased.
anything
That's
ever.
probably a good thing. It's probably just good for everyone's sort of self-esteem that you forget the past. Also, maybe means that you make the same mistakes over and over again.
Well,
Um,
potentially, yeah.
yeah, but hey, there we go. It's definition of insanity, according to that misattributed quote. Anyway, so Game Week 38 last year, there were 39 goals scored. It was the highest scoring final day in the last 8 years. 23 goals scored at home, and there were only 2 clean sheets, so goals flying in from all angles. Notable things. So in the top 10K, Son was the most owned and captain player. He scored a brace. Kane and Kulusevski also racked up double-digit hauls as Spurs beat Norwich 5-0. Captain Kane, I was trying to be too clever, and Son obviously did the business and further just decimate my rank, which was lovely. Arsenal beat Everton 5-1 at home. There were 5 different scorers that day, illustrating the randomness that you can get. Callum Wilson scored a brace as Newcastle beat relegated Burnley 2-1 at Turf Moor. Salah was benched. I think a few people did captain him, but he still scored as Liverpool beat Wolves 3-1. And Mane scored in his final outing as a Red. And finally, Man City beat Villa 3-2. It was a total B team. I think KDB was the only FPL relevant player, and he was only kind of owned by about 10% of the top 10K, if that. So it's just one of those again, which just underlines that, yeah, there's a few sort of big names there. But equally, it was such a high scoring week everywhere, and that things sort of yeah, I think most people did okay. I think we're kind of looking at an average of about 80 points. Do you remember that last season at all, or is it just kind of all disappeared?
No, it's all gone. It's quite healthy, I think. I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah, I think it's healthy as well. I remember I bought in Vardy and Wissa last for reasons I can't remember now on the final day. I looked at my game week, the season threads, and they appeared in my team on the final week. And I'm sure me and Harry would have been at the time. I'm sure I gave my reasons for that then. I'm sure it was very, very well, very good because they both
Yeah,
scored me
very good. I'm sure.
both scored me 16 points. So I mean that's not bad. But I mean yeah, it was for a hit, which we'll discuss later. Yeah. Next, 2020-21, 32 goal scores, 21 at home, 10 away. Spurs beat Leicester 4-2 away. That man Kane again, goal and assist, and Gareth Bale scored a brace. It was the year when Chelsea were trying to cling on to third place, and they lost 2-1 away to Villa, but still got third place anyway, due to kind of just results elsewhere and those machinations on the final day. I can't remember exactly how, but hey, it happened. And I captained Kun Aguero for his final game, so he came off the bench and scored a brace. Man City's 5-0 demolition of Everton, and Mane scored a brace at home versus Palace. Again, yeah, we're really getting into the midst of time when we get to 2019-20. That's kind of the height of COVID. KDB, that was that year when KDB was 9.5, I think it was, and just destroyed everything in his path. They scored a brace as City demolished Norwich 5-0 at home. Jesse Lingard scored his first goal of the season for Manchester United in the 99th minute as versus Leicester as Man United won 2-0. And that was the year when Bruno was truly Hernandez who scored a penalty in that game. Heavily rotated Liverpool beat Newcastle 3-1 and yeah, a few other bits and pieces. But, there's loads of different sort of notable results from the past. Palace 5-3 versus Bournemouth 2018-19. Cardiff beating United 2-0 at Old Trafford. Nathaniel Mendes-Lang making himself a Bluebird legend through a random brace. One of those you should never remember. No one's ever remember anyway. Spurs 5-4 versus Leicester in 2017-18. Mahrez's final game for the club. And way back into the midst of time after that. But yeah, there's basically lots of randomness on the day, high variance in a single week, and you are kind of looking at results like the 5-4 I mentioned between Spurs and Leicester in 2017-18, 5-5 between West Brom and Man United on Fergie's final match springs to mind as well. But yeah, more goals on the table historically versus a normal week, and means that you're on the hunt to get lucky, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, you're on the hunt to get lucky. You're putting 7 attackers out because that's your best chance of doing so. You're hoping that your defenders can probably come up with some attacking points, probably. given that clean sheets are hard to find. I think normally on these final weeks, aside from obvious kind of good home fixtures, which is everything the data implies should be worth looking for, I would usually be looking at players that play for teams that have got something to play for. Now, as you covered at the beginning of the pod, we haven't actually got many of those left. It looks like the Champions League spots could be wrapped up midweek if things go certain ways. And we're really just looking at those three relegation threatened teams: Leicester, Everton, and Leeds. I've been looking through those teams, and I really can't see a lot going there. Vardy is still somehow more than 9 million. Barnes and Maddison were both benched tonight, so that puts me off them a little bit. I'm a bit confused by that one because I think they're the two players that give you the best chance of getting something out of a game, but whatever, that's fine. And I think Everton Leeds just don't have obvious attackers to go after, especially now Bamford's injured. So I'm going to flip the psychology on its head, and I was just kind of considering teams which might be kind of likely to have checked out and kind of gone on the beach, that have done their jobs for the year, for the season, and are kind of done. So I think one of the names that we'll probably discuss in more detail later being Eze. Obviously, Palace are playing a Forest team which confirmed safety last week. So do they maybe check out? Liverpool may not have Champions League to fight for by the time they play, but Southampton are dead and buried. So maybe there's opportunity for a route there. So I've kind of tried to flip it that way and maybe see opportunities in the dead teams rather than the ones that are fighting, I think.
Yep, same. So I had Arsenal versus Wolves as another one. If you're talking about kind of teams who
Yeah.
maybe have checked out, maybe Wolves
Yeah.
have. Basically, it's just all the home teams effectively that I'm particularly interested in. It's interesting that all three of the teams who have something to play for are all at home this week. I think I'm right in saying Leeds,
Yeah,
Spurs,
I think
Everton,
so.
Bournemouth, and Leicester, West Ham. At Palace, Forest, I had United, Fulham, but I think most of us can be sorted there anyway. And
Yeah, I only didn't mention it for that reason. Yeah.
yeah, I think the only game that I think maybe is a kind of, I think we're all going to discount it because we've all got free Bryson anyway. But I think that Villa Brighton game could well end up being like, one of the ones that comes out of nowhere. You end up with the kind of that kind of 5-4 in, especially if you
Oh,
have
do you?
especially if you have a tired Brighton, you have Villa who are still performing very well just in terms of the underlying numbers. I think that game could be quite an interesting one actually. I'll come on to that later on. But good question from Dan, FPL Stats Dan. Are there any genuinely left field punts you're considering? Given
Has he
how
listened to
this
the pod before, or?
yeah, no, that's the thing. I think given how this year has gone, I think the answer is probably no.
No.
But maybe there will be a couple, and that we will at least mention. Probably not going to be touching them with a barge hole, but you know what I mean. And maybe just give a kind of a 1 week genie in a bottle. So defenders, midfielders, and strikers who could be difference makers. Who would we possibly sort of nominate here? But I just don't think this year defenders particularly is somewhere you're going to be going. Like it's
No.
just not worth it for a final transfer, is it? And you're really, really scraping the bottom of the barrel because we've pretty much all got Trent. Most of us have got
Yeah, I was about
Trippier.
to say the only exception would be if you didn't have Trent, then I'd probably put him as fairly high on my list. But yeah, assuming you do have Trent, then yeah, I can't see anyone.
No, so Castagna at Leicester maybe as an attacking fullback. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
maybe.
no one that leads. Everton like play.
Do
It's
you, do
kind
you
of
go for an Everton centre back hoping for a bullet header?
oh god. I mean, imagine Michael Keane being your final day punt. I mean, that's disgraceful. That is.
Actually, Tarkovsky's really high on FPL reviews recommendations for my team. But yeah,
Uh,
carry on.
oh dear. And Alex Marino at Villa, maybe another one that you consider potentially. But yeah, it just doesn't. It feels like if you're in this, it's the only way I could imagine this being okay is if you've got like a midfield and you're kind of two forwards or three forwards of ones that you're completely happy with. You've got one free transfer to use, and you've got some piece of trash to get rid of. Or you don't fancy Estepinian or something, then maybe that's kind of where you be. But I mean, it's really slim pickings. I mean, even if you look at like I mentioned Arsenal, Wolves. I mean, Tierney maybe, but Xhaka played left back last game. Ben White maybe, and Palace. There's no sort of Van Aanholt reincarnation. It's not particularly exciting. So yeah, I mean maybe it'd just be a case of doubling up with Robertson for Liverpool or something like that. I mean and even he's playing a more withdrawn role now. So it's just It's not great, really, is it? Let's move swiftly on and move away from that. Midfield wise, do we sort of? I'm sure there is more. So FPL Fran asks, is there any consideration for my old mate Ezzy? I think I had him this season for one game. He did everything
Oh
but
yeah, and then you
score.
immediately sold him, and then he got something, didn't he?
Yeah. That's just the nature of the season for me. And he's actually scored the fifth most points in the last 6 weeks amongst midfielders. So he could be the punt to look at. And I guess if people have Grealish or something,
Mm.
they might well have a midfield punt slot. The only thing I was thinking was that say you've got like my midfield, so Salah, Bruno, Rashford to Brighton. I don't know where the space is to punt in midfield, really. And unless you're kind of daring to strike out a Brighton player and you're kind of thinking, oh, they're
Yeah,
going to be
that's
knackered,
that's
chasing
the only
shadows.
way. Yeah, that's exactly the conclusion I came to. As much as I would quite like to punt on Eze this week, I don't think I can. I don't think that Brighton players are a kind of obvious weak point or anything, and obviously they're quite highly owned. So if you misjudge it, you're in a lot of pain. And if you're like Tom and you think that that's going to be a high scoring game, you also don't want to do it for that reason. So yeah, I'm struggling to find a spot because I quite like Eze. I think you're very right in saying that it's if you've got a City player that has maybe not played the minutes you expected because City won the league so early, then maybe that's where you have an opportunity that others don't have. But I think given that they're decent fixtures for those popular players, I'm struggling to find a way to get them in.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few names in this sort of in the midfield area, though. If you're
I
not
said I quite
sort of
liked Odegaard as well.
yeah, Odegaard, Trossard, as well, that might come into consideration with Martinelli missing the rest of the season. And then things start to get a bit more sort of like McNeil and Everton. I can't wait for people to somewhere on Twitter, someone's going to say this. McNeil is fourth for XGI amongst mids over the last six. I wonder why. I wonder what game was fueling that.
Yeah, I can't think of how that happens.
Yeah, shocker. Demarai Gray as well, I think could be a shout if he's fielded lone striker because Calvert-Lewin's also out.
Yeah.
Rodrigo at Leeds was also another one that came to mind. And then kind of really kind of hoping that the likes of Jack Harris or something shows up. Um, I also had Madison there until he was benched tonight as a potential sort of pick, just
Yeah.
because if they have something to play for, or even if they don't, he could be an interesting one. Utter speculation, of course, because we don't know how they're going to end up. Seventh for SGI last six, probably his last game for Leicester. I think it's fair to say at home versus West Ham with their eye on something else. They probably won't rotate because they've got 10 days, I think it is,
Mm.
until Fiorentina. But that could be one that descends into a bit of a goal fest as well. So that could be maybe the one that I'd go for if. But I suppose now is a bit of a spanner in the works, isn't there? um,
Yeah.
so,
I think also bearing in mind that we're probably in a situation where people are going to be holding on for team leaks, it might be that there's a City midfielder that does come up, either that you already own or that you could buy, that you know is now going to start, so you think it's worth a punt.
yeah, yeah, maybe you could fancy a bit of Foden on the day, but I'd sooner get an Arsenal midfielder in, frankly, than do that.
I don't really want to be waiting on the leaks for
No,
transfers.
hence again why you'd probably just be happy with an Arsenal midfielder because okay, Odegaard, Saka, they're going to play, and it'll just be a case of kind of is it Trossard? Well, probably is now. So yeah, probably right. Unless there's a rogue ESR or something that shows up, or a rogue Nelson. I don't know. Yeah, Odegaard or Saka would be where you go. So, yeah, some names there, but not too many. I mean, yeah, we're really stretching. We're really sort of putting the boat out, aren't you? If you're kind of saying, yeah, I'm buying McNeil for a final day, could happen. He could be your Mendes Lang. It's just one of those, isn't it? But I think the key area this season seems to be the kind of the striker punt slot. And if you're kind of holding an Isaac or like us holding an Alvarez, maybe that'd be where you go. With the final move you're going to be making. I'm not entirely sure where you stand with this, but I've kind of whistled it down to two. I don't looking at Bamford got injured in the knee, so looking at Nonto at Leeds, don't know what's happening at Leicester, no idea. Mate, if Vardy still going somehow, Everton, if Calvert Lewin isn't fit, you've got Mopay. No, so I've got it down to two. And number one this is probably where I'm going to go, which is Gabriel Jesus. I feel like that game is a 3-0 waiting to happen. It's that sort of regulation 3-0 victory, I think, for final day for us against Wolves. Jesus has been a bit unlucky recently. He's the third most underperforming forward over the last 6 weeks. So I think he'll be my transfer in. But as I said earlier on, I've got a sneaky suspicion that Villa game and against Brighton may well go off. I think Watkins I saw is the most underperforming forward over the last 6 weeks, even if you exclude the penalty miss versus Liverpool. And so putting up the numbers, he just hasn't scored, and it's been very, very convenient that he hasn't scored because most of us have sold him relatively recently in FPL, which I think again would probably lead to diminished interest because people don't like to go back to a player they've sold. And I'll be doing the same. Magpie syndrome. Oh, Jesus, I haven't had him for quite a while. I'll get him. But yeah, I think it's between those two for me this week, which is again, I guess sort of they're both at home, both have nothing to play for. But I mean, I think those games are probably going to herald the most goals. You got Alvarez to get rid of. What are you thinking?
I may just the difficulty I have is that I still have three strikers, so like three viables. I mean, like not I haven't killed the spot, which means I can't actually stretch Jesus because the money's too spread. So at the moment I've got Isak, who I've benched tonight, so that's going to go well. And then I've got Alvarez. So I've got kind of money, but I haven't got Jesus money, which makes life a bit more awkward. I was looking at going back to Watkins, as you mentioned it. And maybe I'm being compelled by your Villa Brighton goal fest suggestion.
It's just a prophecy, which is no doubt going to come completely false because of how things have been going recently.
Well, it's better than most. This is going to sound a bit mad because I did also put them on my list for potentially checking out. But in terms of looking at games that could end up being goal fests, I kind of wondered if Palace Forest might turn out a bit weird. And in which case, maybe Awaniyi, just on the basis that he's been scoring a lot of points recently, in the classic FPL analyst way, man gets goals. But I'm really struggling, actually. I'd hoped that I'd get confidence to maybe punt on Iheanacho, which is a very not me transfer. But he started tonight, and if they were willing to play someone that wasn't, just two strikers and a lot of defensive midfielders, I might have more faith there. I do. There is a little part of me that really just wants to punt on it, just because Leicester have to come up with something.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, especially it'd be such a strange. Or maybe you're kind of straight on to Sam Martin, aren't you? And just kind of for the first time this season, hoping for a Leicester league, which is I guess so. I mean, how much money you got to spend?
What do you want? Why are you asking me?
Yeah. How much money you got to spend? Like, kind of must be so not Jesus money. So you're looking kind of 7-ish.
Let me just have a quick look. Just do some nice talking while I.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got 7.8.
It's always go for Callum Wilson. Yeah.
The ultimate insult to myself.
Yeah. Give up on it altogether. And yeah, that also rules out Liverpool strikers for you, doesn't it?
I don't think I'd have gone there anyway. Probably.
No, Mr. Jota. Yeah, I can see why straight away. It's very kind of barrel scrapey, isn't it? It's not the best set of players there.
I might go back to Watkins, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Watkins looks to stand out, and the underlying data's there for him. I mean, thinking about StatStan's question about left field punts, suggesting Ollie Watkins is quite the opposite of that. But there you go. I'm really struggling looking at the list of strikers who cost less than 7.9.
Which may mean I make a midfield punt after all.
Yeah, maybe just kind of junk the spot or just kind of bench shit and just go for broke elsewhere. Maybe that's what you do. How much money would you have for a midfielder?
Depends who I could get.
Yeah, I guess so.
I've got 0.9 in the bank.
So again, you're looking at the mid range. I'd say probably be Arsenal or Eze, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
if you're boiling it, or there's always James Ward-Prowse's final appearance in the Premier League while you're an FPL manager, Lucy. I think that's the obvious option,
Don't
isn't it?
say it.
Really,
Don't. No.
final
Don't.
day at
No.
home. It's just it should be done. It's an emotive pick. It's just it makes sense. Makes
Does it?
sense. I
Does
think
it?
so. I think so.
Okay.
Makes more sense than Watkins anyway. Watkins is rubbish. It's boring. Just don't get him. I think you should get Ward Prowse. That's definitely worth it. Oh, if that did go off, imagine. It's the only one from Saints you'd ever consider anyway. But hey, I mean, just a free kick is going to happen, I'm sure. Final home game, Premier League. No, not you don't
No.
look you don't look convinced.
No,
Okay,
I'm not convinced.
I'm sure this is going to happen. Right. Okay. So yeah, midfield Arsenal or Eze, and up front, Jesus or Watkins. It sounds like is kind of where we go, and defense, just leave it, forget about it. Captain wise, do you dare go against Haaland? Because Brentford is such a nasty fixture for captaincy. Like something about it makes me feel like they're going to be a thorny game anyway. Deepak asked us actually best alternatives to Haaland. Is there any chance he might be rested? I don't think so. Um, I guess the EO would be with him, I'd imagine. So, I mean, would you ever consider going against it? Like, I think I'd go for Salah versus Southampton if it was. I think
Yeah,
that's
if you're
probably
looking
where
for
I'll
an
go.
alternative, I think it's Salah. If you've convinced yourself he's going to be benched, then you could move him out for Kane, Leeds. But yeah, I think Salah, if given who people will own already, I think Salah versus Southampton is the obvious captaincy pick if you don't want to go for Haaland. But I think you have to bear in mind that, as usual, Haaland's EO is going to be massive, so I probably wouldn't bother unless you're looking for a big chase.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, isn't it, where you're weighing up the sort of semblance of the final day being a bit YOLO versus the fact that the real politique of situation is Holland's EO is going to be massive. But it's it's not the best game against Brentford. Salah versus Saints feels like one of those which makes it just feels like that could be more of the field day rather than a gnarly Brentford side. But you just don't know because it's the final day, you know. I think are you saying then that you just be on Haaland and you just forget about it effectively?
I think so.
Okay. I don't know. I might go for it. Just to if it's kind of the same sentiment as your five kind of 300k or 500k. I'm kind of 20k or 50k probably. Like I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference
If
really. How I
past
end
you
up.
could see you right now, he'd be disgusted.
No, he wouldn't, because that's exactly what he used to do every single week. That's why he ended up 300k. So, yeah, yeah. So,
Okay, past you from earlier in the season.
yeah, fine, fine. Um, but I think also past me was doing well and was quite happy with his life. So, there you go. Obviously, personal life fine, but you know what I mean. Happy with his FPL life. Yeah, no, I might end up kind of chancing my arm and seeing what happens because it feels like kind of the captaincy really that I quite like to go for. Anyway, interesting. Nathan Jacobson, actually we've kind of covered this, but he remarks that there doesn't seem to be much to play for on the final day. Any FPL ramifications from that? I mean, it's just enhanced randomness, isn't it? Really, because we
Yeah.
can't read the tea leaves on any motivation or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I haven't got anything else to add other than that, really. I think you're just trying to find something in something that isn't there, really.
Yeah, yeah.
The best I can do is the on the beach theory because the playing for something isn't there. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm playing for an extra place. This argument always gets wheeled out that but they get an extra £2 million if they finish one place higher
the
in the
players
league
don't
table.
care about that, do they? I don't
No,
think.
no,
The
not
maybe though, thinking of playing for a place though, it did make me think maybe there were players potentially playing for moves, like potentially making they want to make a last stamp on the season.
Yeah, like James Ward-Prowse. No, he's
Or
been
James
playing.
Madison, I was also thinking, but
Yeah, but James Ward-Prowse be playing for his
stop
league, won't he?
feeding the James Ward-Prowse thing. I want to end up with James Ward-Prowse, and now I'm like, what have I done?
But you're going down swinging in that case, aren't you? But no, that's also a fair point, isn't it? That players can be putting themselves in the shop window, and so on and so forth. Or just that having that
Probably
emotive sort
left
of
it a
final
bit
day.
late though, haven't you?
I
Because it's
know,
Gameweek
yeah.
38.
But hey, no, people have been signed for hundreds of millions of pounds after playing well in 3 games
The
in the
World
Middle
Cup.
East. So
Yeah.
yeah, stranger things have happened. I think
Yeah.
I saw like a bit of a movement for people saying, "Oh, it could be Kane's final day as a Spurs player." So, but I don't believe it. But those
Do
people
you not
saying, "Oh,
believe that? Do you think he'll stay?
I don't know." Part of me feels like I'll only believe it with my own eyes once he's signed in another shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I just yeah, if he goes to United as well, I think I'll lose a lot of respect for him. But that's probably just my own thing. Um, yeah. Hey, there we go. Um, taking hits on the final day. Any thoughts? I saw that our friend Late Riser was saying online earlier on that he's taken a hit at the end of the season every single campaign since he can remember, and he always gets about 12, 15 points. I suppose that kind of links on to the leak thing, doesn't it, really? Because I think that will dictate what happens. So, Rohan, what is the chance that the FPL servers go down on Sundays? Everyone waits for leaks and makes transfers at the final moment. Two things there, but they're both kind of interlinked, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I think the leaks do give you less, reduce your risk on taking those hits, and I think potentially open up new opportunities you won't have considered. So I can see the temptation there. Um, I'm normally terrible at the judging those kind of 1 week things. It's definitely a late riser thing, not a me thing. Um, as for the servers and the leaks, I'd be shocked if the servers don't go down at some point, given that we expect everyone to be waiting for a leak and that obviously all teams playing at the same time, we will get some, even if they're not, what everyone's looking for. As for what I'm personally doing, I would consider it very likely that I will miss the leaks and the deadline. We're away for the bank holiday weekend in a fairly rural area, so I don't even know if I'll have signal. With friends who aren't especially into football, so I won't be very popular. So if I do get the chance to check my phone, I probably will try and find something out, but there's a high risk that I won't be able to, and I'm not in a position where I'm like
Of,
I don't think it's
of
worthwhile
yeah,
that ruining.
bother, just not
Yeah,
bothered,
I'm not
basically.
that bothered. That is fundamentally what it is. I'll probably just look at my watch and go, "Oh yeah, the deadline was about half an hour ago. I wonder what
Yeah,
happened."
yeah. I'm not looking forward to being a schmuck on the final day, sat there just frantically refreshing and waiting for some child man to, or man child, I should say, to produce
With
some
the
sort of
awful
terrible,
video.
some sort of leak
Yeah.
video. Oh, it's going to be horrendous. And then, so I think what I'll do is I'll probably make one move early on, like just on Friday, on Saturday. I'll do like a Jesus move that day. And then if I need to take a hit on the day to do something else, I think my bench is a bit crap. I think it's Botman and Henry, then maybe I will. Um, but I think it's very much down to that, and I don't really want to be, um, yeah, be one of those people who's kind of contingent on making a move. I think it's a 3 o'clock deadline, so making a move at 2:55 when, especially because all of the teams are playing, there's going to be so much kind of attention on it, and I suspect we'll see loads of people logging onto the FPL website for the first time in a long time to just kind of get the best team they possibly can in the final week. People that casual players playing their wild cards, so things like that. Just loads and loads more server load. I expect it to be an absolute shit show. So,
Yeah. I think
um,
people should have a team that they're happy to play and hope that they can get on.
yeah, yeah, and maybe the only thing would be is if that you find out that Haaland isn't playing, then I think that would lead to a stampede. Honestly, I think that would be terrible, and that would be the server going down straight away. So again, it might be why I just kind of leave it on Salah and just forget about it. Then hey, Salah could not play on the final day as we've seen. Two final game weeks in the last 3 years. So yeah, need to see. So yeah, how do you expect the final game week to go? Sounds like you won't even be watching.
No,
Should be
I probably won't.
looking at fields somewhere.
Yeah, fields and beer and barbecues. That's the plan.
No, no, that sounds very good. I will. I think I've actually got a few. I'm not going to be able to go to the FPL meets just because of childcare, obviously. But I think I'll actually have a few hours to myself because she's going out. They're both going out with my other half sister, so her boys can meet their baby for the first time. So I've kind of strategically planned it that they're out from kind of 2 till about 5, 6. So
Nice.
so I can just have a bit of time, watch football, and maybe have a beer or two. Yeah, that's just. I think it's very much in the lap of FPL gods. What happens, how it happens, and God knows what. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the season to be over a little bit. Unfortunately, it's felt uniquely draining, as we'll discuss next week. But yeah, it's always a goal fest. At least it has been for the last 8 years. I'm sure it will be again. Transfers and captains for the final time. I think we've really kind of discussed it anyway. But yeah, Jesus in for Alvarez, likely for me, and between Salah and Haaland, I think that
You're talking
but
me around on Salah now.
depending on how this week goes, I think that yeah, unless I mean, I'm really looking at De Gea saving 2 penalties and Dunk scoring 2 bullet headers against Man City for me to be in consolidation mode. Like it's really going to have to be. I'm going to need a jump, and captain is going to be the jump. So it may well be that Salah is the player that I go with. But yeah, we'll see. And you were on Haaland, now you're not sure, and you're not sure about your transfers yet.
Yeah, I'm
That's
not really
absolutely
sure about anything. I'm not really sure whether I'll see the deadline. Not really sure if I'll see the games. Really, there's a lot of mentally checking out here, which isn't really helping the production of the pod.
That's all right. Quiet quitting is the name of the game. Well, I think that's your not on that happy note. We'll be back a bit later next week for the final show of the season. If you tend to stop listening after this point, I don't blame you. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience, and maybe speak to you next year.
Oh, maybe. Obviously you won't hear from me, but it's been lovely recording. I'll save my thank yous and goodbyes for next week. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. We were Who Got the Assist. You can find Tom on Twitter at WGTA_FPL, and you can find me at Lucy Hynek with 2 T's.
So yeah, that's it for the penultimate pods. Enjoy the rest of double game week 37, but not too much Wilson owners and the final day. And we'll be back sometime next week after the bank holiday to cry into our beer and sign off for the summer. Great. Take care. Speak to you soon.